Orit Luciano, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline. Now, you're the executive director of the Association for Rape Crisis Centers in Israel, and you've just come out with a new report about the atrocities that, the sexual atrocities that Hamas committed on October 7th. Can you tell us a little bit about that report? Who did you interview? What was your methodology? How did it come about?
Okay, well, really, 2 days after the 7th of October, we have already got information in the Association of Rape Crisis Centers about sexual violence that took place in the horrific massacre. The information started coming out in little bits of information, and I understood already then that we need to document this kind of information. We didn't exactly know back then what exactly are we going to do with it. And as the weeks passed on, I understood that we have here an obligation to do something with the information, the public information, the testimonies, and the information we got. And therefore we decided to collect this information, and we have this knowledge that we did it in the Association of Rape Crisis Centers. We have this knowledge how to analyze sexual violence, because we did many reports for Israel, for the Israeli government on specific issues like sexual violence in sports, sexual violence in the academia, and so forth. So what we did actually, we collected all the public information, but only from reliable sources, not at all from social media, but from accredited newspapers that did thorough investigations, like the New York Times, for example, and other resources. And there were many very serious journalists that did very, very good work. We also conducted some interviews by ourselves, and we also have information which is not public. It's information that we got in the Association of Rape Crisis Centers. And what we did is actually one thing. We tried to see where did the things happen and what happened. So what we found out is, first of all, that there were 4 scenes to the sexual violence. It was the Nova Party area, it was the kibbutzim and all these small villages around there, it was the army bases, and also it was the hostages that are in captivity. Wow. And then what we did was to see what happened. And I don't want to go into graphic details, because it's really something a regular human being, it's very hard to digest the atrocities. But what we saw, that in all of the places, the similar things happened, like shooting in the genitals, disfiguring the bodies, especially in the genitals. It happened in all places. Burning of bodies in all places. Gang raping, and so forth. Now, we actually looked at all the categories of violence, and we started sort of to organize them. And we saw, first of all, it was systematic, not one place, all of the places. Not one mutilation, many mutilation. And when you see the big picture from the macro level, you understand 2 things. First of all, you understand that somebody gave the Hamas terrorists a directive to do it. Otherwise, it would be sporadic, maybe one place here, one place there. But no, it was systematic, planned, intentional sexual violence atrocities. Wow. Very sadistic and very brutal. And this is what we bring new to this. The knowledge exists, but nobody looked at it like we did, and it's very sad. And it's also, as being an Israeli, and also even being, my mother was a survivor of the Holocaust, and being a daughter of a survivor, it's very hard to see that these kind of things happen, and the world denies, doesn't care, doesn't believe. You can really support women that are suffering also in Gaza, but it's impossible and unbelievable that you don't talk about what's happening to us and what still is happening to our hostages every day in the horrific situation in captivity. And I want to say something about UN Women and Dr. Sima Bachos, who is the head of UN Women, that every day posts on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all kinds of posts about how poor are the women in Gaza. And indeed, I myself acknowledge very much their suffering, and I wish we didn't have this war. But not to acknowledge what we are passing, it's very sad.
That's true, but when you're saying that they're talking about the women in Gaza, it's not Israeli soldiers that are doing things to the women in Gaza, correct?
Not at all. What they're talking about, the suffering, there's not enough food, the situation is very hard. Of course, in Israel, never there was this kind of thing, systematic sexual violence, never ever. This is wars, this is crimes against humanity. This is horrific. No, not at all here in our society.
And have you ever heard of anything like this anywhere else in the world, seen anything like this in this country?
What I know, yeah. Yeah, I'm not an expert in sexual violence all over the world, but what I know, like from Ukraine and former Yugoslavia, these horrific things do happen, but not like it happened in Israel. First of all, we were not in a war. It was a regular day, a regular Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. We were not in a war. There is no peace between us and Gaza, but there was no war. And from 0 to 100, from peace to total chaos and sadistic killings and torture, I don't think I've ever heard something like that. It was very, very planned, very systematic, very, very. It's like they were practicing that. Maybe they went to Iran, the Hamas, practiced being terrorists and also learning how to do these horrific things. I have never heard of something like that. In Ukraine, and we talked with people from Ukraine, there are also women who were abused and raped by soldiers, but it was sporadic here and there. It's not like somebody sent them to do that. And I think this is the big difference. And this is what the world should know, that Hamas is a terror organization. It's a horrific, horrible terror organization. It's not soldiers. It's terrorists that do unmoral things. And this is the big difference.
So what do you want to see the UN to do? How do you want them to respond to this report? You've submitted it to them, correct?
Yeah, we submitted this report to Pramila Paton team, which came to Israel and was very attentive. When you come to Israel, it's a little bit different. When you read a newspaper back home, maybe you just think this was some kind of a terrorist attack, but this is not what it was. It was a sadistic terrorist attack. It was not just a shooting. Unfortunately, living in Israel, we suffer from these kind of things. It's very sad, and I wish we wouldn't, and I wish we would have peace. But the thing is that I think many people in the world and the United States, they don't get it, how sadistic it was. Imagine sitting in your house, somebody in 7 o'clock in the morning opens the door, goes inside, takes your 16-year-old daughter, rapes her in front of you, and kills her, and then kills you. This is something horrific. Yeah, and I want to tell you that, I also myself and many of my friends in Israel, we all have these horrific dreams about our house getting penetrated and people coming in and doing horrible things to us. I think it's such a national scar, and Hamas are a very efficient terror group. They were very efficient. They did excellent work. The brutal, sadistic work. Yeah, I'm kidding. Of course, they did horrific work, but they did manage to hurt and to damage the Israeli people.
So, how do you want to see the world in general respond to this? What can they do? What can people do?
I'm an NGO. I'm not the government. My money is only from philanthropy. The Israeli government does not give the Association of Rape Crisis Center nothing. We want to be independent, so we can say what we want, and we're not dependent on anybody except for people who believe in our cause. And I took this job because I really want to help women and men who are sexually abused in Israel. This is my ideology, and for me, the basic thing when you deal with sexual violence is to give acknowledgement, first of all, to what happened. This is the first stage, acknowledgement. And I would like the world to understand that that no matter politics, no politics here. There is no excuse to what was done. There was no excuse to the sadistic, systematic terror attack. And the first thing is to acknowledge that. That's enough, And the UN bodies, it's more than that. They should issue reports. They should get a good information. They should work and invest a lot of time. And I want to say one more thing. Many people are expecting to hear the survivors, and there are survivors in Israel from this attack, talking about what happened to them. These survivors cannot talk now. They were so hurt. No woman will dare to say, I was sexually abused by Hamas. Not now. It will take time, maybe many years, but we don't need them. They have to rehabilitate, and we have to speak for them. And I want the world, to acknowledge that, because what happened in Israel could happen in the United States. A terror attack of Hamas jihadists could happen in Times Square. We had, you had 9/11. The world had 9/11. History repeats itself. So if you don't stand up and shout and acknowledge, you let these horrific, horrible people continue.
That's true. How sad. But thank you so much for your work. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, I just would like to call the people of the world to acknowledge and put politics aside when we're talking about sexual violence against women and men and children. No politics is an excuse for that. No politics.
Okay. Orit, thank you so much for joining us, and may the Lord bless your work.
Thank you.